Welcome back, everybody. Friday afternoon even. Look, I wasn't even going to start here, but I've just watched the game back and I think we have to start here. So the NFL is back. I'm hyped. I've been watching the NFL since 2006-ish. Because I remember there was a point, because I think in my young sporting, visual sporting career, if that's even a thing, I remember watching the NFL once and thinking, like many, if not all of you watching this, I was like, what on earth is going on? Why is it so stop-start? Why are there so many flags flying everywhere? Why are there so many people? Like, who's doing what? There's so many different... I thought, right, let me just start somewhere because I'm interested, because it looked interesting. I did know that. I didn't want to just get into a sport that I thought was boring and just thought, I'll just firm it because it's the NFL. It looked fun. Like, the good bits looked really good. And the bits I don't like in other sports, like English sports, rugby and whatnot, cricket, I guess, like those kind of things where it's like turn-based, I was like, right, let's see what this looks like to me. Like, let's see how what all the flags mean, what all the penalties mean, what this 10-yard thing means, what all those numbers on the screen mean. Because Americans love it. Obviously, American football, baseball, to be fair, all the American sports, but certainly American football and baseball, they love their stats, and obviously I'm the guy for that. So started way back in the day, and then year upon year. Also, it just so happens I did like the New England Patriots, who, well, at the time they weren't the champions at the time, but I like Tom Brady. He's got the same birthday, and the logo looks cool. It's New England Patriots. They look cool. So I was following them. They happen to have won almost everything since then. So it's been a kind of a stray. It's like jumping into football and going, right, who's the... I mean, they New England Patriots were, and still, well, not anymore, but they were definitely the best team of the last 20 years. So I've had a kind of a different sort of perspective. I guess when you watch Super Bowls a lot, you kind of get a finer appreciation for it. So, and I practiced a few times at uni on the American football team, who were actually a really good team. So that's my sort of background behind it. The new season started last night. Tom Brady won last year with the Bucks, his new team. He was at New England his whole career. He left New England at the start of the end of the season before, so before the 2020 season. Joined the Buccaneers, who are terrible. Like I think they still have the overall. Well, maybe it's changing now, but at the time they had the worst overall record across all four sports since Tom Brady was at New England. So they weren't a good team. So Tom Brady's gone from the best team, winning his 6th Super Bowl with New England, and he's come to one of the worst teams, but they had a lot of good weapons. They're like a lot of these Premier League teams who get relegated, but they have a superstar player, or any team that's sort of a bit weaker, but they have some really, really good players, and there's like a core there. So Tampa Bay had that. Went to Tampa Bay last year, won the Super Bowl. Obviously, there's no crowds for 90% of the season. Towards the end of the year, they started to have a few select stadiums, depending on how bad COVID was in that state. So this is the first year with real crowds, but last year they went straight into it with no real training camp, which you need. You need a pre-season to get used to all the different play calls and the schemes that offense and defense run. And obviously, having been in New England his whole career, this is a whole new city, whole new coaching setup. This is brand new for him. So they won the Super Bowl last year against the consensus best player in the world at the minute, Patrick Mahomes. And then here we are, new season, 22nd. He's 44 years old, by the way. So he's 44 years old, which is the second oldest in history. And obviously, as you know, to be fair, the quarterback position, you don't need to be, you don't need to be young, clearly, because he's 44 years old. He's still top 5 in the world, in America, in the NFL. So, but it does help, obviously. You can take more hits, you're more durable. I guess your mind works quicker, but the older you get, you've seen a lot. And when it's as turn-based, I'm going to use that term, as it is as turn-based as it is, when you're saying offense versus defense, it's not just everyone and it's fluid, it's offense versus defense, that's what it is. So when you see the amount of different defensive schemes, as Tom Brady has over 22 years, that experience is way more valuable than just being fitter, having better cardio, being stronger, being able to take more hits and being able to run faster, which Tom Brady isn't one of those quarterbacks anyway. So last night, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers opened at home, as they do every season. So the champion, whoever won the Super Bowl, starts at home before the season starts. So like the Thursday night game before the season starts on the weekend, which is normally a Sunday, the champion will open up. And this on paper looked like a mismatch, because Dallas Cowboys, I'm sure a lot of you will have heard of the Dallas Cowboys more than you've seen. So they're the most valuable sports franchise in the entire world, which is slightly misleading, but I guess if you take it at face value, a la Conor McGregor, like, yeah, that makes sense in terms of the most marketable, the big Dallas star, America's team and all that. They did win 5 Super Bowls back, so they're not just, they're not like the New York Knicks, who are like really valuable, but they haven't won almost anything / a whole lot. Dallas Cowboys at one point, I mean, they still are, I think they're the 3rd most winningest, if that's a term, team in the NFL. I think, yeah, they've won 5, so they're not just, they've won a cheeky 1 or 2. Their reputation is built on success and the image that the Dallas, the star, and all looks great, and the billionaire owner, Jerry Jones. So on paper it looked like a mismatch, because last year they came 3rd in their division, losing record. That whole division had a losing record, which is unheard of. So Dallas were not looking very good. Tampa Bay brought all their team back. So in the NFL, in all American sports, to be fair, it's very hard to retain players because they've got salary caps. Unlike, if they had that in football, everyone would be screwed. Because they've got salary caps and the finances are so strict over there, you can't normally retain players because they increase in value and you're just not able to retain them at the contract prices they're at. So they retained all their players from last year, which is almost unheard of. So they got all the same guys, Brady, the coaches, everyone from offense and defense. So everyone came back and it looked like a mismatch. This was one of the best games, top 20 for sure, which I've seen a lot of games, but this game last night was exactly, if there's a game to watch, this might be it, to be fair. Like, if you're a neutral, this is one of those games where it goes back and forth throughout. There's a few mistakes, some dramatic moments, some excellent plays, and then both quarterbacks, Tom Brady and Dak Prescott, who was playing very, very well last year before he shattered his ankle, like a horrific injury. So he's coming back from injury. Both of these guys were on fire last night, and it kind of kept. The reason why it was so close in the end was, mainly down to turnovers. So Tampa Bay turned the ball over 4 times, which, when you're obviously, like I said, when it's offense versus defense, that's your time to score. Obviously, you can score when it's the other way around, but you're throwing the ball, you're running the ball. That's your time to score. So if you're giving the ball away when it's your time to score, they're going to use their time to score and actually score. So that was the story of it early on. I mean, Tom Brady was flinging the ball around. It was looking great. Dallas were getting scores as well, to be fair. And then it kind of ebbed and flowed for a bit. There's a big turnover late in the game for Tampa Bay. Chris Godwin made a great catch and then is reaching for the end zone and the ball gets punched out of his hands. So that could have been game over from then. Dallas got the other end to score a field goal. And if you've ever heard about anything to do with Tom Brady, you don't give him time to score with any amount of time left. And he drove his team down. They kicked the field goal. And then that's all she wrote. But as far as the season, the way the season looks now, I mean, that's exciting as hell. Given that they've started this well, and I think Tampa, from a Tampa Bay point of view, because I guess I'd be following them because of Tom Brady. From their point of view, it's a good start that you've managed to get an awkward game out of the way. In terms of, it's like in football, when you win 1-0, you're happy. If you win ugly, it's great because you know you can win beautifully. So if you win ugly, get down late in the game, kick a field goal, it's a good start. And probably more importantly, Dallas Cowboys are looking very good. If they can build on this and actually because you need to win, you can't lose too many games in the NFL because you won't make the playoffs. So early doors, it's looking good for both teams. I think this is a win-win for both, and for the fans and the neutrals, whoever they are. Well, I guess this is all of you guys now, but looking good. They've added, I guess the big difference between NFL this last season to this, in the last 25 years, is they've got 17 games now. So they've added another game. So they used to always play 16 games. They'd have 1 week off. So between now and end of December, first week of January, they'll play every single week, which is savage given how intense the games are. But yeah, that's American sports. They've got an extra game now, and then they'll do the playoffs and the Super Bowl. But I'll kind of check it. I will probably cover this quite a lot. I'll do some separate videos to kind of break it down further because I know almost everybody that's going to be watching this hasn't seen the NFL, and it'd be good for me to sort of give some sort of kind of dumb it down, but like give it some easy access things for you to like, oh yeah, now I know what that means. Now I know what that means. I'm not going to go into too details about the rules per se or the intricacies of it, but as we go on, you'll hear me say more things as it goes along. It's kind of similar to Formula One, where it's quite niche, and I'll give you my sort of perspective on that. So, NFL has begun. One of my favorite sports, probably one of my, probably top three. I would say football, Formula One, NFL, just off the top of my head. I'd say that they're the things I'd watch. If they were on every week, or if the Super Bowl was on, or if, British Grand Prix was on, there's a hierarchy, and those three things will be at the top. So, look forward to that. So flipping it back to last weekend, my boy Patrick Cantlay, Patty Ice, they're calling him, was on fire. Like, it's great to see the end of the FedEx. I like the FedEx Cup playoffs because if you build up some momentum, you can get the whole thing done. Like, you don't need to be good throughout the whole season. Be good throughout the season, not great. I mean, Patrick Cantlay happened to be pretty great this season. But when you get into the FedEx, it's like, hey, you've got 3 tournaments to build up some points and build up a head of steam. And then in the last one, like I said like the other week, it's like a time trial sort of situation. The leader goes out at 10 under, so he's got a 2-shot advantage because of what he's done to that point. And then Patrick Cantlay held on to that. I mean, John Rahm, my other favourite guy at the minute, he pushed hard. He actually won. So remember last week, I wasn't too sure. He actually won the tournament, but he was the lowest. Him and Kevin Na scored the lowest that week. So last week in the Tour Championship, in that single event, when they all went out and swung their golf clubs, John Rahm and Kevin Na shot 14 under that weekend. But it just so happens that they were too far back because of the time trial thing I mentioned, that they didn't win the tournament. So there is one thing, it's not two different things. You can't win the Tour Championship tournament, but not the FedEx. So the winner of the last thing is the winner. So Patrick Cantlay won it. It was nerveless because the last couple of holes when he was going up against John Rahm, he made bogey on 16, brought the lead back. John Rahm made a birdie, and then Patrick Cantlay but both of them had beautiful approach shots to the last, and Patrick Cantlay managed to tidy up, and they both made birdie. So Cantlay won by 1. It was interesting because people like Tony Finau, who I mentioned, won the first tournament. He started at 8 under par, so he was second going into this last tournament. So Cantlay was at -10, Finau was at -8, so he's got a great chance. But Finau shot level par. So if you remember, I just said John Rahm went 14 under that week. So there's a 14-shot swing between John Rahm and Tony Finau. So he kind of screwed it up a little bit. Kevin Na, like I mentioned, shot 14 under. He ended up getting top 5. But yeah, so that's sort of like not the end of the season because there are still more tournaments, but in terms of the FedEx season and the major season, that's kind of like it. Obviously, you get into winter time where they don't normally play as much golf. Granted, obviously, some places around the world are very different. It's not all rain and snow like it is here. So going forward, we've got the Ryder Cup in 2 weeks, which is going to be insane, as they always are. But I think every year the standard seems to just get better and better. And the Americans look so strong. So we'll see how that one goes. Europe won the Sohan Cup, which is the women's version. That's kind of always kind of back and forth, but that did get interesting at many occasions because those two teams are quite well matched as well. But yeah, going forward, I think that's going to be it. There's going to be a few tournaments, but I don't think I'll be covering as much golf until next year. But there'll be a few tournaments popping up, and hopefully maybe if Tiger Woods comes back next year, we can get into that. Wrapping it up with the Formula One, which is, well, it's kind of a twofold thing because I've got last week's to recap on and this week's. So last week was the Dutch Grand Prix. They haven't held that since 1985, like I mentioned. Max Verstappen's home Grand Prix, and the coverage and the fans, it felt like, they're all getting very excited. It was very exciting to see, to be fair. Like, it was one of those, anytime there's a home favourite in one of these countries outside, because Britain don't, they do, the British Grand Prix level like 2 months ago with Hamilton and Russell and those guys was very exciting, but I feel like when it gets to like Italy, France, and the continental team, certainly South America, but that doesn't really apply to Formula One. Fans are very feverish and very, very passionate in the way that British fans just aren't. So the Dutch fans were going mad. I mean, there was smoke flares, it was crazy. Relatively straightforward for Max, this one. Because, I mean, it's clear. What's interesting, because I kind of go back and forth on this. Like, Red Bull have the best car, for sure. Like, they do have the best car. But also, Max is doing a much, much, much better job than his teammate Perez. Because Perez isn't really... If Red Bull had the best car by miles, then they'd both be flying off with it. But clearly, I think what's hurting Red Bull is obviously Max is a legendary... Well, he's on pace to be a legendary driver. He's definitely him and Hamilton are the best two drivers in the world at the minute. He's obviously extracting everything out of what is already an outstanding car, and Perez isn't quite. Hamilton is doing the same with... The car isn't as good, but obviously Hamilton's the greatest of all time, so he's going to make it look closer. So Bottas is doing obviously a better job, I think, overall at this point. Even though he's had terrible luck, he's doing a better job overall than Perez is. So it's I kind of go back and forth, like, because logic tells you, right, Red Bull has the fastest car because Max is running away with it. But Max is obviously an outstanding driver, but Perez isn't doing the same thing. Whereas Bottas and Hamilton are both keeping their Mercedes right behind Max. So qualifying looked closer than it was because Max's DRS, the rear wing, extra tenth you get, extra 10 miles an hour of speed rather that you get down the straights, didn't open. So Hamilton could have stole pole because Max's car wasn't working, to summarise it. So Max got pole, and it was an easy off the line. Max got a good start, and then off he goes. And Hamilton kind of kept pace, kept it, within 2 seconds, which is 2-3 seconds, which is fine. And then they changed the strategy a few times to try and jump Max. And at one point it did get very close because Bottas, who they were leaving out for a one stop, so he's only going to stop once for tyres, whereas Hamilton and Verstappen were going to stop twice. So at one point Bottas was kind of not blocking but holding up Verstappen a little bit, and they all got very close. And then that overtake was kind of the changer because Verstappen managed to get past Bottas relatively quickly, and Hamilton, it took a couple of seconds just because of the way the track was configured. So that was a big part of it. And then towards the end, it was quite funny because obviously the fastest lap of the race you get a point for if you're in the top 10. And Lewis had that. Bottas pitted for tyres because he had vibrations that the tyres were looking like they weren't going to work so well. They pitted Bottas for tyres, and he obviously with lighter fuel and quicker tyres, he's obviously setting the fastest first and second sector. And the team got onto him and said, listen, do not set the fastest lap because obviously Lewis has it. And if you take a point away from him, you're losing points from the World Championship. And then he backed off on the final sector, but still set the fastest lap. So Hamilton had to pit then for new tyres, put his car through the ringer he beat him by another second, but he had to then risk it to then set the fastest lap. So Max won comfortably. Hamilton got a good second, Bottas got a good third. So for the team stakes, it's got better for Mercedes. They're now 12 points in front. Max now takes the lead of the Drivers' Championship. And going forward, we're at Monza this weekend. We're at Monza now. They're doing the sprint weekend. Sprint weekend is back. So we're doing practice, which is going to be now. Then they're going to do qualifying, normal qualifying, tonight, this evening. And then tomorrow there's going to be another little practice to set the cars up. And there's going to be that sprint that we did in Britain. So it's going to be like a short format race, probably like 17 or 18 laps, which is going to be around Monza. That's really exciting. It's going to be over in 20 minutes, half hour, because Monza's a quick lap and it's the fastest. You get the highest average speeds. So we'll see how the car's set up. Mercedes have got a lot of power now, but Red Bull have always had that when they put the small wings on the back, they're able to balance downforce. They're able to balance downforce and drag really, really well. I think Mercedes struggle with that a little bit. So we'll see. We'll know after the sprint or after qualifying, obviously, because they'll have qualified. But today will be the day where we'll know if Red Bull are miles ahead, because it will show on a track like this. It will really show if Red Bull are just miles ahead, or if Mercedes are, because Mercedes won this track last time, and then next week is going to be Russia, which Mercedes are good on as well. So we'll see, because obviously Hamilton and Mercedes have been great here. They'll be great in Russia, or they have been great in Russia historically. We don't know how good the cars actually are now, so it's weird looking back to last year and the years before. Oh yeah, Hamilton, Mercedes have been good here, or Ferrari have been good here, but this year the cars are very, very different. So yeah, so we'll see. I mean, Monza's great. Love Monza. Love watching the cars around Monza. And obviously the Italian fans are going to be happy because the Ferrari are pretty good now. So last year they didn't quite. They were miles away. So it's pretty embarrassing for Ferrari on their home track. So Ferrari it'll be feverish, the support for Ferrari this weekend, and Ferrari could be quite good. They're not too good on power circuits, which this is one of them. So power circuits being the ones with long straights, you need a lot of power for it, obviously. So Ferrari aren't that good on those kind of tracks. They're good on the small, tight, twisty ones, like Monaco, and they were really good in Zandvoort in Holland last week. So we will see. News in Formula One, the secret that everybody knew that couldn't announce. George Russell is going to Mercedes now to replace Valtteri Bottas. So next year you're going to get George Russell and Hamilton in the same team, which for a Britain's point of view, that's your team now, because you got two amazing Brits. And George Russell is definitely a future world champion, so that's exciting. Bottas is going to Alfa Romeo to replace Kimi Räikkönen, who one of the old heads in Formula One. So he's going to jump in there. That's going to be great for him and Alfa Romeo, to be fair. Albon, who was at Red Bull last year, who Perez took his seat, he's come back to Williams at the bottom to replace George Russell. So 2022 I can't wait already, because it's going to be all change. The driver lineups are changing slightly. You've got Hamilton and Russell, who are going to be ridiculous together. As far as a combo, that's just on pure talent, that's going to be the best combo in Formula One for sure. So we'll see. George Russell going to be when Hamilton retires, he's going to be definitely my next favourite. Because he is very, very quick. So we will see how this weekend goes, and next week. So we've got a lot to come. I mean, NFL started. Formula One is getting to the business end, and football will be back as well next week. So appreciate the love if you got this far. I will see you next week.